I know you're excited to get to know our next guest, but before we dive into the Coffee Monday podcast, I think it's only fitting we talk about just that, coffee. Dutch Bros coffee, to be specific. The holidays are here at Dutch Bros with their holiday trio lineup of festive holiday cups and tons of holiday drinks. I'm a sucker for a hot holiday drink, and Dutch Bros has some delicious ones this season. All things peppermint sprinkled into most every drink, including actual peppermint sprinks as an optional add-on. Sipping on my favorite, a peppermint oat milk latte, makes me feel like it's officially Christmas time. So grab yourself a festive Dutch drink and follow along at Dutch Bros Fresno on Instagram and on their Dutch app to get into the holiday spirit this season. Coffee Monday is more than a podcast. It's a movement to reshape the way we approach Mondays and the week ahead. It's about embracing the reality that work doesn't have to dominate our lives. It's about finding that sweet spot where passion, purpose, and a cup of motivation connect. Filmed and recorded in California's Central Valley, join me, your host, Ray Pardini Matson, as I invite thriving professionals to share their stories of how they're crafting a life that's both vibrant and balanced. Well, Jenny, I think we're just going to dive in.
All right.
I'm so happy you're here.
I'm happy to be here.
Mrs. Jenny Wright, my friend, an amazing mom, wife, and formal title, Women's Holistic Hormone Health Practitioner.
Good job. I know it's a mouthful.
No, it's amazing. I want to make sure I get it right. And founder of Right Wellness. Yes. Mm-hmm. So excited to have you. I feel like we have so much to talk about. I think we could just dive right in.
Yes. Yeah. And thank you for having this podcast. I listen every week and I think it's so great just learning about our neighbors and the community. And it's really cool that you've pulled it together like this.
Oh, thanks, Jenny. Yeah. It's been fun. Kind of keep it fun, right? Or why do it?
Yes.
So first things first, but first coffee.
Yes.
We both got the same thing.
Oh, great. You're learning.
Yes, I am. Jenny, you're teaching me your ways. Oat milk latte. Mm-hmm. And we'll go into why later and all the things. But cheers, sister. Let's start with that.
Cheers.
As we enjoy our coffee, I wanted to kind of give our listeners some background on how you got to founding your own company and kind of taking this path in your career. So let's rewind a little bit to your background in the medical industry. Can we start there?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So one day at Long Beach State, I remember drinking way too much coffee. I was community health education major, and I was like, I want to go to med school. Like, let's do it. And I called my stepdad, who's an OBGYN, and I told him, and he's like, well, are you sure you really want to do that? It's a huge commitment. There's not good work-life balance. You won't be able to have a family. What about PA school? I was like, what's a PA? I have no idea what this is.
Yeah.
So I started looking into different PA programs, and basically, as a PA, if you don't know what it is, we are able to practice medicine. We can write scripts. We can order tests. We can do all the things. We just have to work under a medical doctor's license. Mm-hmm. So we're like a physician extender almost. We can extend the work of the physicians. So I went to school for that, ended up getting my first job in women's health, worked at a really busy clinic downtown, had my kids, took a couple breaks for maternity leave, and then going back to work, it was just always like, you feel it with like the guilt of the mom, and you still want to work and do what you trained so hard for, but missing those babies at home. And then, the financial sense of I'm working to pay for the daycare. Why can't I just do it?
Literally. Preach, sister.
It's so much. And, I'm very fortunate. My husband is a very hard worker. He's created an amazing business as well. Mm-hmm. And so, we made the decision, let's have me stay home. And that was rough.
Okay, so tell me, how old were you have two girls. How old were they at this time when you decided, okay, now's the time where I should probably put on the mom hat a little bit more full time, right?
Yeah. They were 1 and 3 the first time I stopped working. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And staying home with them, it is one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm taking a break, right? Mm-hmm. But obviously is not a break. You know, that was some of the hardest days ever because you never get a break. Like going to work was kind of a break. So yeah, going from there, I was always trying to find something else to do. Like I always wanted to, and I taught at 2 different colleges. I taught at 2 different PA programs while I was staying home with them, but I needed something day to day. So I kind of dove into a couple different of the MLMs, just, have community and kind of learn a little bit about business. Cause I'd always kind of wanted to start something myself. And it wasn't for me. I'm happy I did it, but it wasn't for me. But I learned a lot. I learned about growth mindset. I learned a lot about, building, building clients and having that relationship, which I never had to learn in, medical.
Right.
So yeah, I ended up going back to work and again, because I was like, this is not working out. I'm miserable.
Yeah. How old were the girls?
They were, oh gosh, that's a good question. I think they were 2 and 4 or 3 and 5, so between there.
Yeah.
So I went back to work February of 2020.
Oh my God, stop. And then psych.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
I mean, technically you're still obviously a, what's the word? Words are not coming easy to me today. The businesses that stay essential. Is that the word?
Yes. Yeah. So I was an essential worker. Yeah. Apparently. I mean, everybody's essential. Like why
100%.
I hated that term.
But you know what I mean?
Yes.
It wasn't that what they called it? Essential.
Yeah.
Where, So you stayed, I can't remember. Is this when you went to
Mason's.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went in Dr. Mason's office, OBGYN. So yeah, I went back to work there. I loved it. I love working with patients. I love procedures. Like I love helping. Like that's truly my passion. When I really dug in and done some work, that's what I've discovered. And, so going back to work felt great. But then it was COVID and schools were shut down, and I literally had to hire our part-time babysitter to be full-time home with the kids.
Right.
And it was so sad because she doesn't have teaching experience. She doesn't have these tools, and as great as she was, I was just like, this is just not what I want for my kids.
Right.
We were very fortunate that the daycare my kids went to, the director of the daycare took back some of her prior children that she used to take care of for COVID.
Nice.
And so, my oldest was still able to do the online work. So we ended up transitioning back to the daycare.
That works.
And so they did all their COVID stuff, online learning there. But that was a really pivotal year for me because I saw everybody else start to work from home. And I would still see my clients, your patients, I guess, day to day, and all the things they were complaining about. I think it was a lot of the stress from COVID started bringing out more and more people coming to the doctor talking about these things because as we were quarantined, we didn't have other people to vent to or talk to. So I just started hearing patient after patient saying like, something's wrong with me. Something's off. Like, I don't feel right. I'm really irritable. I'm tired all the time. I'm not sleeping well. And so all these symptoms, and their periods would start to be irregular. And I didn't have anything. I didn't have the tools to help them, to help them through this. I'd order lab tests, I'd order their hormone, full panel, whatever I could order, I would.
Right. To get answers for them. Right.
Yes. And then, I'd get the results back and I'm like, oh, everything's within normal range. Like, I don't know what to tell you, and I'm like, we can put you on the birth control pill to help regulate the periods or help with the symptoms. But, and thank God, like a lot of my patients were like, no, I don't want to be on synthetics. Like I want something natural. I want to fix the problem. I don't want a Band-Aid. And so that led me to do a lot of digging. So, and that year we were super slow in the office. And people weren't booking their appointments. We ended up doing a lot of like online prenatal care, a lot of what's it called? Video visits. Telemedicine. So we did a lot of telemedicine that year. So I had a lot of time. So I looked into a bunch of different, holistic, functional medicine, endocrinology, all kinds of any option I could. And then I found a women's holistic hormone health practitioner program certification course. And, I put in my 2 weeks with Mason's office. It was a little over a year after. So I, trudged through the whole COVID
Yeah, good for you.
Stitch for a year, and then I was like, this is right. This is what I want to do.
And you've always been very health conscious. I feel even since we've been friends, I feel like you live a healthy lifestyle. you know?
Took a while
Or
to
just
get there.
conscious of like what you eat, what you drink, exercise. Aren't you a runner?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say I got a lot of that drive from my husband. So
Really?
like high school Jenny, it was like fast food 3 times a day.
Me too. College. Oh my gosh. I was joking with a girlfriend about this recently who I went to college with, who was in my sorority.
Yeah.
And we were just like disgusted with ourselves at the things that we
my
ate and
gosh.
drank in college, and how now, I mean, the more you know, right? Like now the girls in college are like drinking green juices and like,
Gosh, they're so
super
ahead.
healthy. And, you know, I was like, that was not me, though. I wish it was.
I know. Well, we're making up for it now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Literally. That's how I feel too. So that's really cool. So you kind of took the leap and not only, you know, took a, I think, very similar natural, no pun intended, path in your career, but you also started your own business, which can be scary for a lot of people. How did you feel about that component of it?
It's something that I always wanted to do, and yes, it was always scary, so I never did it. Also, you know, being a PA, you can't start a medical business as a PA. You have to have a supervising position.
Okay.
So even if you did start a business, you can only own 49% of your own company. A physician has to own 51%. So, and I had written a business plan at one of the times that I did it 2 separate times, the whole mom thing. And one of the times I wrote a whole business plan. I had like a women's wellness center and like doing all the medical stuff. And it was that year through COVID where I realized I was doing more counseling than actually hands-on touching. And, you know, I wasn't practicing medicine. I was more like a health coach or a counselor. And then so when that finally clicked, like, oh, it doesn't have to be a medical practice. I could do consulting or coaching. That's when it was like, oh, and not that it's easy, but it felt more natural in it.
Right.
It just flowed better in that sense. So,
Love
yeah.
that. So you ripped the Band-Aid, you started Right Wellness, you went through the certification, you have your background in the medical industry, especially in the OBGYN field, which makes so much sense for you to make this transition. So how did you, firstly, I guess, twofold question. How do you like tell people about it, right? Step one, like, hey guys, this is what I'm doing now. And then secondly, who, obviously we know women are your clientele, but like who to start have you seen to be utilizing your services?
So definitely a lot of my friends were the first to start. And, you know, as friends, and I always love to, you know, everybody needs a friend in medicine, right? Like you need to know someone in the medical field, and that's where you go to get all your advice and all that. And, you know, maybe write a prescription on the side for you every once in a while, right? So we all need that friend in medicine. So that was kind of my approach. Like I really want to be everyone's friend in medicine that they can come rely to.
That's sweet.
You know, get taught the things to advocate to their doctor for. So it started naturally with my own friend group. And then, you know, like my friends and family would be like, oh, I have this one person who was just complaining to me about exactly what you're talking about. Let me refer you. I do, you know, I post a few things on Instagram here and there just to put information out, but my Instagram is more my personal stuff, and I just kind of post what I'm doing sometimes. But I did get a lot of traction just,
I'm sure,
just through that network of people. A lot of just friends of friends to start.
Love it. And then obviously women. So I feel like even though both of us are moms of young girls, your girls are a little bit older than mine. And you probably have a lot of friends who have like kids a little bit older or kids a little bit younger or just starting to have a family. So talk to me about the different, like almost like hormonal phases, if you will, of women that come in, right? So there's those that are in their childbearing years, right? So talk to me about that and like kind of, right? Am I explaining it right? You can obviously help me with that. Different phases, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So you have like your childbearing years, which is, you know, early 20. And it's sad that like at 35, right, we're like advanced maternal age.
I had a geriatric pregnancy with MJ, and Mason is my OB. Love him. Love everything about his office. And I had to giggle at that. I'm like, wait, seriously? I've had 2 other kids that are not that far apart. Like, and now all of a sudden I hit 35 and you're like,
I know you're old.
I mean,
So you have, I mean, basically after puberty, right? Or childbearing years all the way up to, you know, into your 20s and early 30s. So you have those, you know, prime childbearing years, we'll call them. And then you have the post childbearing years where, you might still be of the age where you are that childbearing age, still have good ovaries, good eggs, all the things. But it's, after that phase of your life. And that's not really a physiologic thing. That's more of when you stop having kids. And then you kind of have the perimenopausal phase, which is pretty vague. And it's not, it's not a one clear, this diagnosis is perimenopause. It's more of like a combination of symptoms, a lot of things happening in the body, less frequent ovulation, lower progesterone levels. Typically, we see high estrogen levels in this phase, which, we can talk about estrogen dominance, but I don't want to go too much into
For sure. Bring it on.
all that stuff.
Yes.
But yeah, so you start, the perimenopausal range, you start getting into this estrogen dominant state. And that's really what kind of wreaks havoc on the whole system. A lot of things can get us to that estrogen dominant state, but definitely aging is kind of a natural way that does happen. We also have all the environmental insults and the culture and our toxins, everything leads to that state. But then you have the menopause and then the postmenopausal phase too, which is, 12 months without your period is considered menopause.
I was wondering. I was literally just going to ask that. You beat me to it. Interesting. So essentially a year without your period, you're considered, you've gone through menopause.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then obviously postmenopausal, right? And what to expect then. So I feel like it's like parenting in a nutshell in some ways. It's like right when you think you got the hang of something, things change.
Yeah,
you
don't
know?
want to get too comfortable.
Or a next phase begins with new challenges. I don't know. That's how I feel. Can you tell?
Yeah. I see.
So that's interesting. So starting off, I imagine a lot of your clients, since they're your friends around the same age, they're probably either childbearing years or post-childbearing, right?
Right.
But have you since seen clients that are maybe older or going through different like the menopause range?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. So I do have a few, and my target audience is what I know, and I'm always like my own guinea pig. So I love working on women who are in the same phase as me, just because I feel like, because I've personally experienced and gone through it, I can better help. But yeah, I have the knowledge and the tools, and I do have several clients who are in that, getting close to menopause or post-menopause, who are on hormone replacement therapy. And I do the, the monitoring, and, I don't do anything with prescribing medications or changing dosages, but I can be that person's health advocate and teach them how to advocate for what they need.
Yeah. That's kind of what you've done with me. So kind of just transitioning into that. Obviously, we knew each other personally. I got to know more about what you were doing in this next chapter of your career, and I have been going through your 8-week program. So this is perfect timing. We're at the conclusion.
Yes.
And I feel like I've learned a lot, first of all. And I feel like, at least with my situation, when I was pregnant with MJ, my youngest, I had a huge lump on my neck. I noticed it. I was insecure about it. Dr. Mason said, yeah, you should definitely get that checked out. Fast forward, without getting into too much detail, I was diagnosed with postpartum thyroiditis, and I had to get my thyroid removed. So I will forever be on thyroid meds. But I really have loved working with you because you're conscious of that. You're consulting me on like what labs to ask for from my endocrinologist, and your thyroid's connected to a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And you've taught me a lot about that too. And I feel like I heard the statistic 1 in 8 women experience some sort of thyroid issue in their lifetime.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And there is, there's a physiologic reason for it, of course. So with hormones, they don't only tell other, your cells what to do. They also communicate with other hormones and tell their hormones what to do. So estrogen and thyroid do have a very close relationship, where that estrogen dominance that I was talking about typically lowers your thyroid function. So that's why we see so many women in this, around age 35 and older, we start to experience that slower thyroid function, and it is that estrogen dominant state that lowers the thyroid. Also, with the case of thyroiditis, it's usually autoimmune. So there's a genetic component there. And to have a genetic trait kind of exposed or start to show symptoms, you need the genetic component there, but then you also need something to set that off or trigger it. So think of you have the family history of thyroid issues.
Right.
That's like the loaded gun.
Right.
Okay? You have a loaded gun. But you still need the finger to to pull the trigger. And that typically is something very stressful, whether it's, either chronic psychological stress or a physical stressor like pregnancy.
Having a child, there's that. Yeah.
Yes. So pregnancy is like one of the most stressful things that your body can go through. And it's a perfect storm. Like women are just set up to be a perfect storm for thyroid issues. That's why it's more common.
And to your point, the autoimmune, I have celiac disease that runs in my family. So autoimmune disease with thyroid history, just a recipe for something to happen there.
Perfect storm.
Yes. So with that, 8-week program that you go through, which we'll talk about that. I think that there's different components of each session that I've gained something from and learned something from about how certain hormones kind of speak to each other and how things like our thyroid and certain other glands it's all connected, right?
Yeah.
So at least from my perspective and feeling like I'm fairly knowledgeable about the holistic space, I've always seen it as like, instead of putting a Band-Aid on a wound, you're finding the root of the issue.
Exactly.
With your work, which I really have loved and strong believer in.
Yeah.
So do you mind sharing about like what the essential pillars are of what you teach your clients?
Absolutely.
And we can dive into some of them more than others, however you want to do that. But essentially the way you have it structured currently, and I believe you're also going to offer this next year as well, is 8 weeks. So 7 different teachings with a conclusion at the end, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So let's kind of dive into what those pillars are.
Yeah, definitely. And to the point of everything's being connected, that's so eye-opening. I mean, when you're going through medicine, there's so much to learn that you have to break it down by a systems approach and learn about one system at a time. So, having that background and knowing those separate systems is helpful, but to put it all together is tricky. But we are a whole human, body, mind, spirit, even too. Everything's connected. So my program kind of goes through all those. And while I do kind of have to separate things out just for the purpose of teaching, I do always kind of link everything together and make sure everyone knows it's all connected. So the 7 pillars that I go through, my number one thing that I like to teach women, and sometimes it in and of itself is very, very helpful, is just to respect your cycle. I think I meet so many women who are like, oh, I hate having my period. I hate PMI. I hate all these things about, being a woman and being a cycle and having to deal with all these things. But if you really lean into it and, you know each phase and when you're going to be your strongest physically and when you might, be your strongest mentally or spiritually, and you lean into those sides of things, it's so eye-opening. And then you feel like you're not constantly fighting against yourself or like pushing yourself through. So this might not be making sense, but I'll back up. So through, your menstrual phase is the time that you're bleeding. The 2 hemispheres of your brain are actually more communicative during this time. So it's such a good time. Think of it as like the winter when you're inside, you're staying warm and cozy, you want to turn inward and you want to have that dialogue with yourself. You want to do journaling. You want to, that's just such a good time that you can lean into yourself and learn more about yourself. And you might even, a lot of women's intuition is even heightened during this time too. So, if you have something in your life that you're struggling with, to really meditate on it or journal about it during that time will give you some really good insight and might give you some answers for, your future self.
Love that.
And then after that, during your menstrual phase, it's also part of your follicular phase, but your hormones are at their lowest, and then they gradually incline during the rest of the follicular phase. So you're starting to feel better, kind of coming out of your shell from the winter. It's more like springtime. You're starting to have more energy, more creativity. You're wanting to be more social. So that's, you want to do a little bit more tasking tasks. Anything more challenging, something that requires creativity, you can really load your schedule during this time. To make yourself more productive. This is going to be your productivity time. Okay. And then, and physically too, working out, exercising, you can do the HIIT classes, you can do the runs, you can do the more physical things. And then we have your ovulatory phase, which is my favorite. This is the time where your testosterone peaks. So, to explain testosterone in females, I always like to give you the image of people on the beach. If you go to the beach to hang out, you typically see the men are up competing, they're playing games, they're doing spike ball, throwing a football, playing all the games. They're motivated. They have that drive to get up and do stuff. And the women, we're casually lounging on the beach, snacking, having a drink. And so that's the difference between testosterone and not having a lot of it. So during your ovulation time is when you do get that good peak of testosterone. So you're going to be wanting to be out and motivated and driven. So this is the time to really, if you have if you want to ask for that raise, or, you have another professional that you want to start working with, you can capitalize on this phase of your cycle and do those things.
Yeah.
Because that is when you're going to be feeling your best. Your face is more symmetrical during this time too. So you have the more glowy skin. You look more radiant. It's incredible. Yeah. What the body goes through. And then your luteal phase. Oh, and the ovulation phase.
Ovulation is also when you conceive a child.
Exactly.
Obviously.
Yes. So you're prepared to be the perfect mate.
Yes.
You're mating season is on. You're your best self during that time. Yeah.
I have to laugh because Michael, my husband, always laughs and I do too. Before you and I started talking about this more, I never knew anything about my cycle, ever.
We're not taught it.
No. Everyone's and we got pregnant very easily, very blessed. And I think, some women are more conscious of when they ovulate, obviously to conceive a child thoughtfully. We were just kind of rolling with it.
Yeah.
But I feel I guess I didn't really, not that I didn't have to think about it, but I feel the more you know is always great. So now, to your point, I always thought there's only two phases of a cycle. There's ovulation, there's
your period, your actual period.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyways, you're teaching me a lot that there's technically 4, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So after ovulation, you said that's more like summertime.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what's after that?
So the luteal phase is kind of fall, right? So fall, we're starting to turn inwards, but then, fall season, you have little events and things that pop up, right? Fun social things that occasionally happen. And that's your luteal phase. You're mostly on the downswing with your hormones, but you do get little ups and downs. So that's what leads to kind of the more, you feel a little bit more inconsistent during the luteal phase. Some days you're up, some days you're down. Your husband's I'm on a roller coaster ride with you. That's what I heard a lot. Gosh, you're,
welcome to my
roller coaster ride.
Yep.
Yeah. So the luteal phase is more that roller coaster ride where one day you're going to be feeling terrible and irritable. And then the next day you're going to be oh, I'm ready to go out and, have a drink with my friend or whatever. So I do recommend during the luteal phase, you want to clear your calendar. You want to prepare for that winter phase, right? You're wanting to turn in. But just know you will have some good days in that phase. And then that's the good days to be spontaneous if you feel like it. So just, really tuning in and listening to your body is huge.
Love that.
Yeah. And as any relationship goes, right? If you go 3 months without talking, to your husband,
is that an option?
No.
I'm joking.
Right? Your relationship is going to fail. And, with friends, you do have those friends you can talk to once a year and it's great. But in general, relationships do require that upkeep of checking in. But we don't do that with ourselves.
So true.
And you are your own most important person. So you got to do those check-ins daily.
One thing you also shared with me that really stuck with me is because of these different phases, plan accordingly, right? Like you just said, be in tune. So one thing you said that I'm wow, that makes way more sense. Don't just on a whim decide you're going to do a cleanse when you're in the heart of wanting all the bad food, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yep.
I would normally think of it, it's the first of the month. That feels like a good time to start a Whole30. And it's well, that's maybe a different example, but that stuck with me to just kind of be more in tune, or to your point, probably don't want to make social plans during X phase because you're not going to feel up to it.
Yeah, you're going to want to cancel, and then you're going to feel guilty for canceling, or you're going to go and you're going to drain your battery and you're not going to feel good about it. And so just definitely, And
so, a lot of the work that you do in the beginning of your teachings are really kind of laying the foundation of what to expect, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And then kind of going into, okay, how can you, and correct me if I'm wrong in explaining this, but how can you navigate these phases and like be more like even tempered essentially, or just be more in tune with them, right?
Yeah, definitely. If you know, what phase you're in, a lot of it's just having more grace with yourself too. Being more patient with meeting yourself where you're at. And while yes, you can't always clear your calendar and line things up according to your menstrual cycle, I get that that's not feasible. But just having more grace with yourself, if you know you have a difficult task and it's taking you longer than you would like to finish it, just be like, okay, this is fine. I'm just gonna be nice to myself. Allow yourself that time during those phases.
No, that's such great advice. So when you say daily check-ins, what do you recommend for people to like, what do you consider to be a daily check-in, and what can people do to start there, maybe if they've never done that before?
And it's definitely tailored. So I never recommend the same thing to two different people.
Yeah.
For myself personally, I do like an afternoon meditation. My kids like to call it my afternoon nap, and they can tell when I don't do it. They're like, "Mommy, did you not take your nap today?" You're right, I didn't.
Mommy's a little feisty.
I know.
I'm joking.
But yeah, just some sort of daily self-care that allows you to just turn everything off for a little bit. And it doesn't have to be, I do love the idea of journaling because you get to know yourself and your thoughts a little bit better. But I'm not one to just take a blank paper and write. I like having writing prompts, or and they do have a lot of good journals out there that you can buy, or even, you can Google search writing prompts when you're feeling tired. And you can search anything for free on the internet. But yeah, mine is just an afternoon meditation. I do like a 20-minute guided session, or sometimes I just lay there and close my eyes with nothing on. I always set an alarm for like 45 minutes because I fall asleep.
Right?
Yes, yeah, I do. And yeah, that's just really important to me, and that keeps me in tune with myself, in tune with my emotions, and it just allows more free space to deal with than my kids' emotions and their issues.
So it's kind of like your reset for before you pick them up from school and do all the afternoon activities, because they're at those ages, right, where there's always something.
Yeah. Well, and I know we've talked about it too, like what time would be a good time to meditate. And for me, it's when your mind is buzzing, like when you feel like you can't get a clear thought and you don't know what next step to take. And for some people, they wake up in the morning buzzing. And I know
that's me.
Yeah, we talked about this. Yeah. Like you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I have so many things to do. I got to get the kids. I got to do breakfast. I got to pack lunches. And your mind, you're just spinning out of control. Yep. That's the time where you need to meditate. Some people get it at the end of the day and can't fall asleep. They're lying in bed and their mind is racing and buzzing. It's like, put some headphones in, do a guided meditation, and just clear your brain. Yeah.
No, that's really good advice. And I've also heard too, as moms, we try to make the most of all of the time that we have, right? Even if it is something for self-care. So I was listening to another podcast recently, and she said when she meditates, she does her red light mask. At the same time.
Yeah.
Or like ices her face or something. Doing that's probably counterproductive a little bit, because you're supposed to shut everything off. But like that's actually not a bad idea.
It's not. And even like something like taking a bath where you add magnesium to your bath, or the Epsom salt, which magnesium is great for your body, and you can absorb some through your skin. So if you don't want to take a bath at night because it takes too much time and you don't feel like you have that, also think of it as medicine, because you're also absorbing that magnesium through your bath too. So yeah, you can pair those things if it makes you feel better.
Love that. So meditation's a great way, and deciding what time of day works for you. Journaling's another way. Love that.
Yeah.
And just kind of taking even 10 minutes a day to just kind of like reset, right? Even
like a couple minute breath work session. If you really don't have time, but you're feeling that stress build up, you can do the breath work to help you. That's kind of getting to another one of my pillars, which is stress management, which is huge. Huge. So, and kind of what we didn't talk about is, the reason for hormonal imbalances. And, I kind of think of it as there's environmental issues, there's dietary or nutritional issues, and there's like culture, right, on moms. It's like high stress. We have to do it all, kind of a culture. I read a fantastic book called Rushing Woman Syndrome, and it's literally the reason why we all have this estrogen dominant state, like I was talking about earlier. Not we all, but majority of us do,
right?
Because that stress kind of steals up the the hormone progesterone, which is supposed to kind of combat and keep estrogen in check. If you're stressed, then, you're making more cortisol, you're not making as much progesterone, and then that leads to even more of that estrogen dominance. So, so all of my pillars are really to correct these either environmental, nutritional, or just culture and stress issues. Yeah.
So environmental, like meaning what?
Air, water.
Yeah, I know,
there's
right?
a lot of stuff. I know. And you can't help it all. And, it... Again, with stress, if you are too concerned about all the things, that's not going to be good for you. You just need to know that you want to try to control the things that you can control.
Like drinking out of a water bottle versus buying plastic ones. There's a good first step we've talked about.
Yes.
Filtering your water.
Yeah, water filter. They have so many good of the countertop water filters that you can buy. Definitely don't recommend buying a plastic one because that's just worse. But they have a lot of good glass tabletop water filters that you can get. Reverse osmosis is one of the best things you can do to your water. That really takes out all the toxins. So yeah, that would be
right.
Only environmental
and then
stuff.
like we don't have to dive into products, but there's like certain apps and things that can show you like the cleanliness of products. So depending on what you have the capacity to change and do and are committed to, you could start going that route, right?
Yeah.
And then I love I feel like a lot of your teachings in the best way are bringing like simplifying. Simplify your life.
Yes.
And part of that is going back to eating real food.
Which is pillar number 2.
A concept. What a concept, right?
Yes. When I finally made that, that light bulb moment of, a calorie is not just a calorie. Not all calories are created equal. When you eat real food that's nutrient dense, your body can process it, and those nutrients get absorbed from your, into your cells really easily. And, take a protein bar or something different, for instance, that has, you read the ingredients on things. You're like, this sounds like a chemistry book. Like, what are these ingredients?
If you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't be eating it, right?
Definitely should not be eating it. And so you eat that, and your liver has to break down anything that it comes in contact with, right? So your liver has like 500 jobs that it does every day. So when we're eating these processed foods that have these chemicals and toxins in them, we're bogging down our liver. And there's 2 different phases of detoxification. And so that first phase, when it initially breaks down that toxin, it creates a more reactive metabolite of that toxin. So that becomes even more harmful. And if it can't quickly go to phase 2 detoxification, then that really harmful thing that's, floating around, it can either cause cell damage, or your body just stores it in fat cells just to get rid of it. It can store it in fat cells. It can store it in neural tissues, joint spaces. So you think about over time what this can do, brain fog, if you have a bunch of toxic buildup in your neural tissues. If you have a bunch of toxins, in your joints, you get lots of joint, and you just feel, in the winter when you're feeling
inflammation and all the things,
and sore. And then obviously if it's stored in fat cells, you start gaining fat, even though you're on a 1,200 calorie diet and you're working out every day, but you can't get rid of this stubborn fat. Think about what you're eating.
It's so
just
true.
Eat real food.
What you're eating and your cortisol levels, right? Which are related to stress. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Stress is just all bad. Like it doesn't do anybody any favors, right?
Nope.
So things we can do to manage stress will only help us. Things like meditation, breath work, journaling, exercise, right?
Yeah. So, and there's difference between, that harmful stress and good stress. So hermetic stressors, or and everyone's into the cold plunge and the sauna and all those things now. So those are things that stress your body, but create resilience. So they actually make you stronger for it. HIIT workouts is another thing that, doing them sparingly. If you do HIIT workouts every single day, long period of time, you're going to crash your whole system with the cortisol. So, choosing when and where to put those in, and you're challenging your body and you're creating this stress resilience is a way to combat that harmful stress.
That's a really good point about like healthy stressors. I've yet to try the cold plunge. You've probably done it. Brian does it, right?
Yes, he does it like almost every morning.
Stop.
I know.
Talk about a wake up. That would wake you up.
Yes. Yeah, you don't even need coffee then.
Oh my God.
But I still would.
I have some friends who, yeah, same. I have some friends who do like cold shower, like ice cold shower.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have the self-control to stay.
And it's about, it's gaining control of that
Yeah.
response. That's the helpful part, right? So you get in cold and you want to hyperventilate. Your body is like in like survival mode, right? It's like, get me out of, I'm going to die in this ice bath. And so, yeah, you really need to slow your breath, slow your breathing, control your thoughts. So it's that gaining control aspect that's going to be helpful.
For sure. So I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about how coffee plays into this.
Yeah.
Coffee probably could potentially be bad for things like anxiety, right?
Yes.
But like for those like me, let's be honest, I know you love coffee too, but just I love the taste. I love the ritual aspect of it in the morning. Like, what's like a healthy relationship with coffee? I guess everybody's different, but in general, what would you say about that?
I love this question because I have so many clients who are like, I'm not giving up coffee. Like they
Yeah,
come to me and they're
like-
like, whatever you tell me, whatever, I'm not getting. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's fine. I'm
I
not
know.
going to force you to
Yeah.
give up coffee. I love coffee.
Yeah.
But yeah, best case scenario with coffee, you want to, and I learned this from Andrew Huberman, you want to delay your coffee 1 to 2 hours in the morning.
Okay.
This is kind of to complement that natural rise in cortisol instead of spiking your cortisol early. So when you first get out of bed, your cortisol is lowest at night, right? It has a diurnal pattern. So it's going to be highest in the morning, and then it's supposed to slowly drop off throughout the day. And then you can sleep at night. It goes super low at sleep, starts to rise right before waking, and then it peaks. I think it's like 30 minutes to an hour after waking. But, if the people who like open their eyes and turn on their coffee maker right away and start drinking coffee before they've even fully woken up, that's going to cause a spike in your cortisol before that natural spike. So then and then it crashes, and then it just messes up that pattern of cortisol.
Makes
The
sense.
healthy pattern. Yes.
Yeah.
And so that over time can really lead to just crashing out the whole system.
Yeah. And it makes sense why you would need like another cup in the afternoon because you're
Exactly.
crashing for that reason.
Yeah.
So 1 cup a day, 2 cups a day. I mean, I
1
guess
to 2
everybody's
cups,
different. Okay.
Yeah, 1 to 2 cups is perfectly reasonable. And then just try to avoid the afternoon coffee.
That one for me.
Yeah, that's hard.
Part of it, I honestly think that was ritual too. It's kind of
Yeah.
bad. It's like, ooh, it's a treat. It's a treat. I actually just enjoy drinking it. Like
Right.
it's sometimes I don't need it. I just
Yeah.
enjoy the taste. I enjoy drinking it. You
And
know
you could
what
do
I mean?
a decaf, you
Yeah,
could do
true.
decaf coffee.
Good point.
And then, the advice that I like to give for somebody who wants that it's always 3 p.m. You're either
Literally.
craving the sweets.
Literally.
Yeah, you're either craving the sweets or
Yes.
the caffeine.
Yes.
So that's my advice is to meditate for 20 minutes or, let yourself have a rest for 20 minutes. If you wake up and still want it, great. You've earned your treat for doing your 20-minute meditation for the day. But a lot of times you wake up and be like, oh, I actually feel great. I don't feel like
That's
I
a
need
good
a coffee
point.
anymore.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Love that. It's a mindset.
Yeah.
A little bit in some respects.
Yeah.
So going back to the pillars, because I feel like we could totally kind of get off topic. So what do you consider that we've talked about this different cycles, right? That's one potentially.
Yes.
What you eat.
Yeah.
Stress management was one, right? I'm
Yes.
kind of going out of order.
That's okay. I'll just kind of tell you all my pillars and then we
Perfect.
can talk about which ones are interesting, I
Perfect.
guess.
Yeah.
So number 1, respect your cycle. Number 2, eat real food.
Love it.
Number 3, sleep.
That's also like
We can talk a
keeping-
lot about that one.
Going back to like simplifying your life, right? It's like,
Yeah.
But I do have friends who literally can like, I say effectively function on like 4 to 5 hours of sleep.
Right.
Probably long
for how
term.
long? Yeah.
That's not great for your body,
Not at all.
right?
Yeah.
But so is that a myth that some people can just function on less sleep?
I think it is. Because I think over time you're doing yourself a disservice. I mean, the optimal amount is 7 to 9 hours
For any adult.
for any adult. Not more importantly, but also as important is what time you go to bed and what time you wake up. And that's different for everybody. So I do believe that there are, people have different patterns of like, you're early riser, you're a night owl, and that, people do function optimally at different times of the day. So whether, if you go to bed at midnight and wake up at 7 and that's your optimal time, then that's fine. I don't have any problem with someone going to bed at midnight, but as long as it's consistent. Right.
So why is that important?
It's
the consistency.
It's because of that diurnal pattern of cortisol that I was talking about, where it naturally rises in the morning and gradually declines throughout the day. We need that healthy pattern for, it's our whole circadian rhythm. So many processes are dependent on this. And so, when you're, some days you'll go to bed at 8 p.m., some days you go to bed at midnight, some days you go to bed at 10. Like your system is just like, I don't know what to expect. I don't.
Right. No. And in going through your program, I remember you saying something that also really stuck with me that I really have been doing. And I do think it just like biologically helps my body wake up like kind of without an alarm, which is, you told me like wake up the same time every day.
Yeah.
Even on the weekends, which is no problem in our household because our kids pretty much wake us up, which is fine. But like I've been trying to get in a better routine of waking up before them and having time to myself in the morning to meditate, to get ready by myself in peace, those sorts of things. So that I feel like has helped.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do on a Saturday or a Sunday when I'm just like, can I sleep in, which is essentially 30 minutes more.
Right.
But I do feel like it's like my body clock is like adjusting.
Yeah. And also you can wake up at the same time, but still enjoy laying in bed and like reading your book or journaling or, you don't have to get out of bed. And so that's the luxurious part about the weekend is still waking up at the same time, but having that slow, yummy morning to yourself. And I also do want to stress that there's different seasons for this, right? So somebody, waking up before my kid, I have a 3-month-old,
right.
like, okay, yes, within reason. So there's different seasons for these things, and having newborns is not the season to focus on trying to wake up before your kid.
Survival.
Yes,
where they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So
no,
sleep.
that's a good point. Okay, so
Sleep's
sleep is
important.
one. Yes.
Drinking water.
Yeah, that I definitely could work on.
I know. I love that you texted me this morning. Oh, bring your own water. I'm like, really? I have.
Please show the water. Jenny rolls up with this.
my daily. Yeah. No, it's.
You drink 2 of those a day, right? At least.
I drink. It's 64 ounces, so I do drink
1.
This is like my base, but then I'll have like a cup of water here and there, or okay, there's water and coffee, and like your fruits and vegetables count as getting liquids too. But my general recommendation is half your weight in ounces.
Right.
So
I've heard that,
just straight water, and then you get more in other ways too. But yeah, so that's a big one. That's often
huge one.
Yeah. And I do find that my clients who have those like afternoon cravings or like craving the sweets, craving the coffee, it's like, how much water have you drinking at this point?
I have heard that so often, that hunger is sometimes mistaken for thirst.
Yeah. So
not saying starve yourself, but like truly. And I've felt that, it's bad. I mean, definitely need to work on that.
Yeah. So a lot of times if you feel, and to me, it's not that hunger, like, when your belly rumbles and you're actually hungry.
Right.
That's not the type of hunger we're talking about. It's like that snack, or you're like craving something, but you're not satisfied.
Totally.
Like, I think I want chips. And then you have some chips. No, that wasn't what I wanted. I want chocolate. And then you eat chocolate. And you're like, no, I'm not satisfied. So it's more of that like cravey, snacky. A lot of times that you're just thirsty. You just should have drank more water.
Right.
Today.
I've heard too that sometimes to kind of delay the coffee in the morning, that like hot water with lemon in the morning.
I love that.
Like first thing.
Yes.
Because it gives you the sensation of like drinking something warm in the morning, kind of like coffee would be. But doesn't it help with like digestion too? Or did I make that up?
No, yeah, there's lots of different benefits of that. First of all, you're getting a nice healthy dose of vitamin C first thing in the morning with the lemon. It also helps to set the pH balance of your gut first thing in the morning. It can aid in digestion. That's kind of a 50-50 thought.
Right.
But yeah, and it can't, some people say it helps with weight loss, something, and you get a nice 8 ounces of water in for the day.
Right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. The one thing, and dentists will probably be like,
acidic.
But so the acidity on your teeth, but it shouldn't be, unless you're like biting into a lemon, it shouldn't really affect your teeth.
Or you have braces, which I feel like that was always the thing when you had braces.
No lemon.
Not a ton of, yeah.
We'll have to have a dentist on to fact check us.
this.
Yeah. Where's Prieto?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So after water, movement.
Love that.
Move your body every day in a way that feels good. So some days that can be the HIIT training and the hard, high intensity stuff. Some days it looks like walking. Some days it looks like yoga. Some days it looks like just getting out of bed.
Yes.
Or, walking, not sitting at your desk for too long and just taking breaks and moving throughout the day.
Jenny, I had you in my mind on Friday. I had a call, like just a phone call, not a Zoom where I had to show my face. And it was a quick call. And I decided to just take a walk around the block instead of sit at my desk for a good 20, 30 minutes. And I know you said it's important to get outside for at least 20 to 30 minutes a day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I really honestly I felt better about myself just for doing that instead of sitting down, for one.
Yeah.
And then if you don't mind sharing, because I feel like as working moms, we, again, try to make the most of every minute that we're working so that we can be on with our kids when we're not. And one of the things that I've entertained recently is getting one of those walking pads.
Yeah.
Remember I asked you about it and you had really good advice on this, which is essentially, no, you did, which is that might be fine to start because you're moving your body and you're getting the movement and the, checking the box or whatever. But ultimately you said something about your body will eventually adjust to that.
Right.
So walking and working through working, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think it's good to do things intentionally and, focus on what you're doing at the time you're doing it. But yes, if you have no other options and you want to get on a walking desk, I think that's awesome. Movement, not only is it good for, your cardiovascular system, your muscles, all those things, it helps to move lymph through your body. And lymph is kind of, it can get stagnant if we're just sitting all day. So, and that's something to help with detoxification processes. And so that, so if you're just sitting all day, it's not moving that lymph. But in the walking desk, yes, you will keep moving, but your body will adjust to that. I wouldn't use that as a baseline for exercise.
Right.
But it's a good way to, not be sitting all day.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could
I function
coordinate. I could just see myself falling.
I think I can't even walk down the hallway.
I literally can't. Try this. You're going to laugh. I cannot walk and drink at the same time.
Oh, no. Oh, my gosh.
I will.
Funny story. We did, me and my husband did a few triathlons several years back.
Oh, and casual.
Just a few.
Just a few.
But literally, we did an Olympic distance. And the whole time I never learned how to reach for my water bottle and drink my water bottle while I'm riding a bike.
Oh, no.
And I'm
that could be bad.
coordinated.
No.
I did diving, gymnastics, cheer, those kinds of body coordination sports on a bike. I was the one person pulling over in the middle of the race to stop and drink my water.
Yeah, both hands on the handlebars. Can't be doing no.
Right?
Just
oh
no.
my gosh, no.
I'm right there with you. I don't think I'm that coordinated either, clearly. But that's funny. That yeah. So, okay, good advice because I feel like that's relatable. I feel like a lot of other professionals are doing the whole walking pad thing.
Yeah.
So move your body.
Yes.
That's another huge pillar.
And I do also want to add too, it doesn't have to be a 1 hour workout, every single day. Sometimes looks like, exercise snacking, what they call it, where you just do little 5-minute increments throughout the day. Anything just to keep up that. I can't not talk about muscle tone too. Muscle tone is so huge as we age. I think strength training should be women's number one.
I am hearing more and more about two things recently through us working together, through reading more and just being more conscious. Weight, some sort of weights in some capacity. So to your point, kind of strength training and walking. These are not expensive things to implement.
Not at all.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it can be body weight exercises. You don't have to buy the weights either. So many,
planks or what do you mean?
Yeah. So squats, planks, push-ups,
yeah.
If you go to the park with your kids, you can find a pull-up bar, try to challenge yourself doing pull-ups.
Yeah.
Or they have the modified bars you can do.
That's a good idea.
So lots of good exercises there. I think, we're trained to cardio ourselves to death as women. It's you can be on the elliptical for an hour. You're trying to, and it's just kind of, I think our school of thought of how a lot of us not were raised, but just the things that we heard growing up. It was like you want to expend a calorie for every calorie you consume. So we've been more conscious about
That's true.
burning calories in your workout. So like you don't feel productive unless you burn 500 calories in one workout. And then you know that you can eat 500 calories more. You know, it's this calories in, calories out thing. But, you know, when you think about strength training and you're building your muscles, you're actually improving your metabolic rate. So you're burning more calories at rest when you build your muscles. So it's not necessarily about how many calories you burn per workout. You know, like I said, with the muscles, you know, you have that more muscle tone, you're gonna be burning more.
No, that's a good point. And even like with a new mom, I remember when I was breastfeeding, they always said you have to eat more to fuel your body more, because your body's like full on working.
Yeah. And a lot of women don't want it because they're like, oh, I want to lose the baby weight. Or,
Right.
you know,
Who
things.
knows
So,
what. But yeah, I remember I lived on like oats or protein bites or something that had a lot of
the
protein in
calories.
it to keep the calories moving through.
Yeah.
So moving your body's obviously huge. That looks different to everybody, but there are simple things that you can implement in your daily that you don't have to your point, set aside an hour and a half, whatever, which I love that. I feel like sometimes I keep going back to like having kids and post having kids, but I think this could apply to anybody, which is sometimes starting a new thing can be intimidating. So maybe you aren't normally used to exercising and you're like, oh, I'm just not going to do it. I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
But starting small, I feel like is attainable for people. Don't you think?
Absolutely. And it's building the habit. And I know there's all those books about building habits, but there's this one. And the guy was trying to start work. I forget what book it is, so I apologize. But you know, he wanted to start working out. So every day he would just drive to the gym. So that's how it started. He's like, I'm just going to get in my car and drive to the gym.
Yeah.
A lot of times he'd get to the gym parking lot and be like, okay, I'm here. And then turn around and go home, you know, and then it progressed to him going inside the gym. And he'd like sit inside the gym, look around, and be like, okay, I'm going to go home. I got here. And then so progressively, like just making that a habit every day to just go. And then eventually he started working out, and eventually, you know, then it just became
Love that
habit. But yeah, it is intimidating. Like, what do I do? And I always do recommend going to a professional. Obviously, you don't. There's so many good videos that are free. You know, there's a lot of free resources, a lot of good influencers on Instagram who post a lot of stuff. But you really want to make sure that you're doing things the right way, especially with exercise. You can hurt yourself.
Exactly. You could hurt yourself. Yeah.
So I do recommend going to, and you know what's great though? You get so many free first-time classes anywhere.
So true.
And if you're scared to go by yourself, go with a buddy. So there's a lot of ways around.
No, you're right. Totally.
Yeah.
Love that. So move your body. So we've talked about kind of like the basics, right? Sleep, food, water, the one that I really need to work on, being more in tune with your cycle.
Yes.
And we kind of touched on stress, but I feel like that's a big one.
Yeah.
Isn't that another pillar, obviously?
Yeah. So after the movement, then it's the detoxification stuff.
Okay. Yes.
And then also the managing stress. And we kind of talked about toxins a little bit, but with, you know, detoxification, like I said, with the liver, it does 500 jobs, right? One of the jobs of the liver is to eliminate used up hormones in your body so they don't accumulate and then cause hormonal imbalance, right? So, you know, after estrogen gets used up, it goes to the liver, it breaks it down. Like I said, that first phase metabolism actually makes it more reactive, more harmful. So we need it to move quickly to that second phase to be eliminated. But if your liver's bogged down by all these other toxins, or you're just not taking good care of yourself and your detox processes are slow, then, you know, you're not able to get rid of those hormones. And that's another way we can have, it leads to hormonal imbalance just because your liver can't do what it needs to do.
Makes sense. I didn't realize that's how many jobs the liver had.
Oh gosh, yeah. It's wild.
But it makes sense. So like, okay, and we haven't talked about this, and it honestly may not be related, so you can tell me that. But I feel like everything's somehow connected, right? And metabolism. Obviously, your metabolism changes as you age.
Yes.
So all of these things probably support healthy, right? Like healthy metabolism, or I don't know.
Well, and that's a lot of the thyroid too, which is a hormone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And that it does slow as we age, but and I read a lot about like functional medicine and longevity. There's always so many like longevity
Have you
scientists
seen
that are
the, oh my gosh, Living to 100 or whatever?
yeah,
the
so I
Blue
follow
Zones
like
and all of that.
all those people, and
Yeah.
it's just fascinating
It
to me.
is.
So their theory is that aging isn't just a natural process; aging is an actual disease, and finding the root cause. They're trying to find the root cause of aging to fix that, because aging is just kind of a symptom.
I know. It's
Isn't that
so
a weird concept?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. I know. It's really fascinating,
It is,
honestly.
yeah.
And to live a longer, healthier life, I think is the key,
Yes,
right? Like
yeah.
nobody wants to live longer if they're unhappy or unhealthy,
No,
right?
yeah.
So that's just on a side note, really fascinating,
Yeah.
interesting. So,
Gut.
oh yeah,
we
gut.
didn't talk about gut.
All the
So
gut health is
gut
huge.
health. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our gut takes so many insults daily, and I'm starting to do even more research into, because gut and hormone health are super closely linked too. So you have the liver doing a lot of the work of breaking down these used up hormones and other toxins, but then the gut has to eliminate them, right? And if you have a defective gut, or if you have leaky gut, or
Yeah.
you don't have the right microbiome, your bacteria is off. A lot of those used up hormones and those toxins can actually get reabsorbed into the body instead of being eliminated. And I know, as we go into each of these things, it does sound more complicated. And I don't want it to sound like, oh my gosh, this is too much information. It's complicated.
Well, I
it's
think
really
a lot of it is just
simplifying
being that, but also being in tune.
Right. You have to know what's happening.
Yeah, like I think, somebody probably could ask, well, how do you know you have a leaky gut? How do you know you have gut problems?
Yeah.
You're going to know.
Yeah.
You're going to have tummy problems. You're going to have issues, pain, discomfort, irregularities, all the things.
Well, and a lot of autoimmune things come from the gut too.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, celiac disease is obviously, I keep going back to that, but that's a huge
it's one that
piece in our family. Yeah. So interesting. So, but the toxins piece too can not only relate to what you consume, like food and drink, but also like we've already kind of touched on like environmental things, right? Like products is a big factor.
Products is huge.
Yeah.
And I do definitely want everybody to know about the app. It's EWG's Healthy Living app. And that it's a great tool. You can, as you're shopping, you can scan the barcodes of things, or you can search different things, and it gives you a rating. So, and it explains the rating on there. So you want, I think the lower numbers are the healthier things that you can do. And then you want to avoid anything that's like 5 to 10 or whatever I might be misquoting the ranges, but it'll just be to help guide you. And it is overwhelming. And when we get to this week in my program, I do one-on-one consults with everybody. I have them write down like their most used products that they use, either daily or weekly. And then I search for healthier alternatives. And I don't want anybody to ever feel like, oh, okay, I have to throw all these things away and start, buy a whole new collection of everything. But one thing at a time, or when you use something up, just be more conscious of, okay, what can I buy to replace this that's not as bad?
100%.
So little small manageable steps over the 8 weeks.
I agree. And just, love that. Attainable, I feel, for people. To your point, once it runs out, the natural next step would be to replace it with something that's a healthier alternative. Love that.
And knowledge is key. Like once you know better, you'll do better. So, but you have to know better.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I know. Because I feel like there's a lot of people that are like hardcore in the clean, like the products and all the things, which I think is amazing. Like that's good for you. But I feel like sometimes it's like, okay, well, that's not realistic for us right now.
Yeah. It's overwhelming.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's great that you break it down for your clients to be like, okay, these are suggestions that you can start incorporating in your daily or your household or whatever. Yeah.
And the big ones.
Love it. Did we touch on all of them? I think we kind of did.
Yeah.
Stress, toxins, those were the last two,
so
right?
respect your cycle, eat real food, sleep, drink water, move your body, reduce toxins, which is
All
also
things.
like support detox, and then manage your stress. Yeah,
Love
that's
that.
what I teach.
So with your teachings, let's talk through that, because I feel like we're approaching the end of the year. It's, I think, naturally a time for people to make changes,
Yes.
or
Going
think
into the
about
new
making
year.
changes going into the new year.
Yeah.
So the program that I've done with you is you have two offerings now. You have one similar to what we've done, so I want you to talk through that. And then you have some that are essentially self-paced, so
Right.
people can do them at, it's obviously self-explanatory, on their own. Pre-recorded. You've pre-recorded them
Yes,
on their own.
yes.
So let's talk through that. Firstly, what are you calling it? Like the live one?
Yes. So
that
I have
I've done.
live 8-week program.
Yes.
Program's called Balance. And I just think that's all encompassing. You're balancing hormones, but you're also learning balance. Like nothing's like, it's not an all or nothing type thing. Like there's room for, drinking your coffee and having your cake. And
Yeah.
so just like an overall life balance for hormone health. And yeah, for the 8 weeks, the live program, I do 6 one-on-one sessions with my clients over a course of 12 weeks. So while it's an 8-week program, you're really getting me for 12 weeks. So I want people to book a session at least every other week throughout those 12 weeks. And then we'll do weekly live Zooms for 8 weeks. So the thought is you're getting me every week on the live Zoom, and then we're doing more personal one-on-one stuff every other week. We finish the 8 weeks, and I guess each week I'm doing a teaching, and I teach about one of these pillars, and then I give kind of a call to action or just one or two very small manageable things to change that week. So then over the course of the 8 weeks, you've slowly made, 8 to 10 changes or so. And then for the last 4 weeks with our one-on-ones, it's more me just trying to keep you in the right direction.
Love that.
Yeah.
Are you going to do them like small groups, like what we've done?
Yeah, I do like keeping it small. I am still trying to play I had 10 in this last program. I thought that was a good number.
Yeah.
I think I could probably handle a little bit more. I'm only going to be doing 2 live programs a year now, just because I really want to give as much as I can to these live programs.
Fair.
And yes, it's time consuming. And I think about my clients when I'm not working with them, and I'm like, I'll listen to a podcast and be like, so-and-so will like to listen to this or needs this. And so I do like to keep it small and intimate.
You do
I
a
can
great
have
job. It's
more
very
hands-on.
personalized. I think, even after our one-on-ones, you'd follow up with me and say, hey, you talked about X, let's try Z, you know? The other thing too, I would say to somebody considering doing this is that do it when you're ready to really, truly put the time in for yourself, because I quickly learned that it's one of those things you're only going to get out of it what you put into it.
Absolutely.
So, it's one thing to just sit through the teachings and hear and consume the information, but it's another to actually implement it.
Yes.
So I just think that that's valuable for people to know going into it. Like you got to put in the work, you know?
You have to be realistic with yourself if you're going to be able to. And while I do think just having the knowledge is always a good base, right? So even if you're not ready to make the changes, if you have the knowledge, then when you do have a season in your life where you will be able to, manage more, handle more, then you can start incorporating it then too.
Love it.
But also, if I'm being really honest, like you have to make the time for yourself. There will not be a perfect season, that'll just all fall into place.
I know you totally put me in check on one of our sessions. I think it was talking about moving your body. And I was like, well, I pretty much was making excuses. I'm like, well, Jenny, I don't know if I don't have time in the morning. I don't have time at night, blah, blah. And you're like, well, Ray, you have to prioritize. You have to make the time. And I'm like, shoot, that's real.
Well, and I think I even gave you if Zac Efron called and asked you to lunch tomorrow, you would make time, right? Like
it's so true. It's
we
so
all
true.
have. And the whole thing of I don't have time is you're completely out of control of your own life and schedule at that point. So that's a whole
separate issue.
Different topic.
Yeah.
So you need to be in control of your own time. You need to make yourself your own priority. And then everything else falls into place. And it falls into place a lot more easily too once you make yourself the priority.
I agree. So like there have been some suggestions that you've made for me that I didn't implement right away, but I'm working on it. And I feel like, to your point, you would know, you're conscious of them. You know that these are things that will make you feel better. So let's move forward with those, right? So talk about, are you going to move forward with the Dutch test also?
Oh, yes.
I feel like that's really cool. So you sign up to work with Jenny, whether it's through the self-paced option or the live.
Right.
And in my case, obviously, I did the live. Self-paced is a newer ad, so that's super exciting for those that kind of want to, again, do it on their own pace. But you start with having your clients do what's called a Dutch test.
Yes.
So talk to us about what that is.
I can't believe we haven't talked about
that was like fascinating to me.
It is. And you know, how I said in the beginning where I would work with my patients and I'd order the whole hormone panels, everything I had, you know, that I knew of to order, I would, and I would find no answers because that reference range, right? Like they're all within the normal reference range. So you're not at the extreme of disease yet, right? But we're not optimizing your personal health. And I do want to talk about reference ranges. I heard an analogy the other day and it just made so much sense. Reference ranges are like shoe size. So if you take a woman's, you know, a normal reference range for shoe size would be like size 6 to size 10 women's shoe. We can all agree that those are pretty normal ranges for
Most
shoe size.
common, right?
Yes, right. And of course you have the outliers.
Right.
But most of women are between size 6 and 10. If you take a size 10 foot and put it in a size 6 shoe, keep in mind, those are still the normal reference ranges. Is that woman going to be comfortable in a size 6 shoe?
Fair. No.
No. So like lab values are that same way. They really do need to be specific and tailored. And so that's something that with the Dutch test, you know, we're not just looking at the snapshot of your blood levels at any given time. And this is, you know, obviously just talking about hormones. We are looking at, it's a urine test and we're looking at the metabolites of those hormones. So, you know, we're looking at like how I talked about with the liver, how it breaks down hormones. And we're seeing that first phase versus that second phase where that first phase is more reactive and harmful. So we're seeing how your body is processing and metabolizing these hormones to give us, you know, a more dynamic picture of your hormones as opposed to just like that snapshot in your blood with that super wide reference range that tells us nothing. So
that's so true. And I feel like there's so many other things. Everybody is so individualized.
Yes.
Like I've seen like on that, like My Chart or whatever, the medical app that you have with some of your providers, I remember when I was pregnant, right? And you would get your blood work or you would get certain tests done for certain levels. You can literally see here's the normal range. And here is where you fall, right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of relative is what you're saying.
yes. Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. So working on, you know, optimizing your own personal ranges, and the Dutch test it checks hormones. So, you know, the panel that I do, it's estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, and then you have the metabolites of those things as well. They also have what's called organic acid tests. So that's really cool. And I'm still learning, you know, diving in more on, you know, what all that means for hormone health. But it rules out a lot of other causes for some of the same symptoms you have with hormonal imbalance. So for instance, low energy, it could be a vitamin deficiency. So we're checking, you know, vitamin B6, B12.
That was my situation.
Metabolites. Yes. So,
I was
you know,
deficient in vitamin B.
Yeah. And that can be, obviously fatigue can be like a cortisol issue, or it can be a thyroid issue, or it can be these nutritional deficiency issues. You know, it also checks, there's an indicator for gut health on there. So checking the gut markers. We also check like biotin. So hair loss is a really common complaint for women with hormonal issues. But, you know, is it just a biotin deficiency and is it not hormonal? So we also have these checks and balances kind of within this test to really hone in on what's causing symptoms.
Interesting.
The root cause of the symptoms.
And I bet obviously you start your teachings and your information sharing from the beginning, but I feel like for the personalized one-on-ones, that really gives you like a much better understanding of what your clients are going through, right?
Yeah. So my pillars are meant to just be broad. Everybody, these are like the foundation that everybody should be doing. And then the one-on-ones, I look at the Dutch test and it is the more tailored recommendations based on your specific hormonal imbalance. So I don't really recommend the same supplements for everybody, right? It depends on your own specific results. I don't recommend the same exercise routines for everybody. You know, we can tailor certain exercise to your specific hormonal imbalance to really optimize your hormones. So it gives us such a better picture.
So cool.
Yeah.
So you're going to continue with 2 lives next year.
Yeah, February and August.
Okay.
Will be the start dates. And then the self-paced program, I have a lot of women who want to do the program, but they're intimidated by getting on live Zoom. And I get it. It's hard to put your face
Okay.
out there. And I don't want people to just have their camera off and volume off. I want them to be interactive on the live Zoom. So if it's
I will say that was like really fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew like one other mom, but I met others through it.
Yeah.
And there was only a few on every session. You give us multiple days and times to choose from per week, which was really great. Different days, obviously, and different times of day, depending on your schedule. And again, making it a priority.
Yes.
But I found it to be really kind of like a community.
Yeah.
Like one of the moms that I met through the program, I saw her at a Fresno State game shortly after, and I was like, hey, never met you in person, but got you on Zoom, and it was just cool.
Yeah.
So I think there is something to the community aspect, but I see where people are coming from if they don't feel comfortable with that. So that's cool that options are always great, right?
Yeah, and I want it to be manageable and possible for everybody. So, and with the self-paced program, you can just choose that alone, or you can also add on one-on-ones with me and the Dutch test. I really, really love everyone to do the Dutch test because it just it gives us so much information. Yeah.
Love that. So to get more information about your services or just, inquire, you're active on Instagram at Jenny N. Wright, correct?
Post a lot of food.
Love it. Really great recipes and inspo. And then getrightwellness.com is your website.
Yes.
So there's two things, Jenny, that have really stuck out to me that I would love to leave with our listeners. One, you mentioned being your own, like your best advocate for your health, right? And sharing more about, having wellness be approachable for everyone. I think that's huge for what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
This was so informational. I hope that many women that are listening are inspired to be their best advocate and make these, some of them, starting simple changes to kind of get to a better path, and navigate the hormonal changes that we naturally have to go through.
And you know yourself best. You know if something's wrong, and trust that intuition, find answers. Yeah. You need to really advocate for yourself and fight for what you know is not right within you.
Truth.
Yeah.
And on that note, I think I need to drink more water.
Yes.
So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to the Coffee Monday podcast. We've had so much fun with you this year. Thanks for listening. Thanks for all the feedback, and thanks for all the love. We'll be taking some time off this holiday season to be with our loved ones, and we'll be back with more episodes this January. Happy holidays, everyone.